front and center this thingamabob, because here's the honest part. If elves existed, elves, the immortal race, or like the ones that can live for like a really long fucking time with like you know, secret knowledge and magic and all that, elves would be the fucking Illuminati, all right? They're not gonna be this like race that can be very easily enslaved or that can be overruled because of like brutish superior forces. Elves would have, you know, been at the forefront of democracy in like, you know, any form of politics and governing with like dwarves and humans would be easily manipulated by elves, because as elves would just have like this longer lifespan and be able to think of like, you know, years in the making sort of plans a lot more often than humans would. And humans would easily exploit the humans' short longevity for quick, like, get rich quick schemes and all that kind of such. And therefore, like, humans would more likely be enslaved by the elves into servitude and all this kind of stuff. Like, if you just think critically for a minute, like, elves, people who, you know, live for what seems like 1,000 years and then, you know, don't have, like, because as far as we know, elves still think in the speed of us. Like, they still have day to day, and it's not, and like, it's only when they live like a really long fucking time that they have these moments of like, oh, the days just sort of blur by into one. They're also pompous assholes. But that's still the point. Like, that's still, like, these are all just, like, British things of, like, the British Empire has existed for a very long time, or that, you know, they're pompous, or just thinking that they're superior above all and such. Like, these all don't excuse the fact that fantasies, you know, whenever they come up with these fantasies, come up with the idea that, like, because they're so cocky and thinking they're so much better than us because they've lived for hundreds of years and seem to be far ahead of us in all kinds of knowledge, what if it was like, we just plotted against them and held a rebellion and actually defeated them? It's like, yeah, cool. That sounds like, man, this British Empire, what's their business being able to go across the entire major globe of the world and being able to do settlements, push all the natives back into restricted territories and such? What if we rebelled against it? Like, yeah, granted, we have examples of US and Canada and a few others being able to just sort of be like, yeah, fuck you to the British and such like that, but we don't have, like, Britain just sort of obliterated. Elves are like the British Empire, where they just spanned so fucking much and existed for, like, in this grand scheme, not in the small, like, within the year or the months or something like that. And if you want, like, further proof, it's like, look at the British now! They haven't fucked off. Yeah, there's infighting and shit, but they still exist. And half of us are speaking English anyway. Like, who? Oh, like, but you get my point, right? You get the point that, like, with the way the elves are, and considering, like, how they're very often seen as an allegory of, you know, a past empire that, or, like, in this case, an empire that still technically exists. It's because the British monarchy still exists and such like that. But you get the point that it just... Meh. Like, at least it makes sense that the dwarves and the elves would be butting heads with each other, because the fact of the matter is that the dwarves seem to have, like, a more material interest in the world and not having, like, the dancing in the fairies mindset, and yet still having about as long of a lifespan. Like, granted, like, maybe 300-500 years shorter than an elf, but still long for a human. Also, I like to think they would be the Lord of the Rings ones. They've seen what humans do and how easily manipulate they are. Yeah, exactly! Like... It's a child's fantasy thinking, but what if the tall, whimsical elves didn't actually have the power to control us? It's like, no, they very much do have the power to control you. They just need to promise power, and a lot of humans would do what they want. Yeah. Thank you. Clap it, you get it. You get what I'm talking about. Here, have a cookie. You deserved it. Good for you, seeing past the lies of elves somehow being needing of our assistance and somehow would be ending up in servitude if they did. Like, fucking bullshit, alright?